of going, we are presenting together, like they mentioned at the beginning. So we'll kind of do a presentation as opposed to two separate ones. But just to give a little background on why we chose this topic, when remote learning first started, we all struggled. We were all struggling to come up with new and inventive ways to do what we've known to do second nature for so long. And one of the things that continued for the longest for me to be a struggle was, how am I going to make sure that these kids are having opportunities to write and to use their fingers and their hands and regularly, because in the classroom we have writing materials in all the centers, and it was just a struggle every day. Like, how can I make sure that they are still able to get opportunities to write? And one of the things that I concluded was that I needed to build that into my remote learning curriculum. So today we'll talk about just some ways to do that, some ways that we found success in it, share some ideas that we've had, both live and through asynchronous platforms. So I will share, we do have a little presentation that I'll share just to kind of give you some, a visual and to guide us through this presentation. So here we are. We already did our introductions, and like I said, we'll just share some practical ideas that maybe you can take home with you or take to school with you starting next week. Some more ideas for you to use with your little ones.
And as Christina had mentioned earlier, this is really informal. Nobody's an expert just yet. And so we, just as much as we're sharing information with you, we'd love for it to be a circular dialogue. So feel free to turn your microphone on or turn your camera on and engage with us as we present.
Absolutely. I agree. So just, these are the standards that writing addresses. The early childhood the IELDS, Illinois Early Learning Standards, and we also in our district used Teaching Strategies Gold. I'm pretty sure it's becoming more common for a lot of early childhood centers. So these are the standards, and I won't bore you with reading them. You can do that yourself. So the main thing that we want to do is to build that fine motor strength, have them use their fingers and hands, use a variety of drawing tools, and to begin to move from scribbling to more purposeful writing.
With being remote, we go right directly into families' homes, and we have adult caregivers sitting there right next to the kids. And so Stefanie and I felt that it was really important to share some tips to communicate with adults in our presentation as well, only because, like I had just said, in remote learning, we get a lot of, I feel like I've gotten so much more feedback or direct contact with families because they're sitting right there with their child. So we know, similar to cognitive milestones, we know that children go through developmental milestones in their gross and fine motor development. So if you look at the image on the left, it's a X-ray of a toddler's hand all the way to an adult's hand. And then if we look at the image on the right, you'll see that it's an X-ray of a preschooler, so like between 3 and 5. And on the other side is a 7-year-old. And so I just really want to emphasize or have us look a little bit closely at the differences between the images on the left to the images on the right, and just look at how much a child's hand has to physically develop, or how much a child's hand does physically develop between this very short amount of time. So when I'm asked on Zoom calls of like, why are we not doing more penmanship or handwriting, or why is my child not writing their name? I'm really worried that they're going to kindergarten, they can't write their name, or I can see through Seesaw activities that a lot of the times the parents are doing the work. And so I use conversations like this to support arguments like that, that these 3, 4, and 5-year-olds have so much development to do, or developing to do during this time, that we just have to give them the time sometimes, that they're still developing. So given time, their fine motor skills, we need to allow them to develop. Looking at our next slide, this is another point of family connection we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so just like Sarah mentioned, just kind of educating. Sometimes that sounds a little condescending to parents because they are their child's first educator, their first point of reference for their whole life. So it's a partnership, but it is a learning curve for a lot of families because just thinking about child development in a new way. So these are some of the resources that we share with families about just writing and what it would look like. So if you see there on the left side of the screen, those are some of the writing progressions, and these are laid out in the teaching strategies goal. When you look at the examples that they show for that one objective writes name, they go through the progression so that you're able to accurately document where that child is. But as you can see, it starts off, if you have a child from 3 to 5, when you get them, it's very developmentally appropriate for them to be doing those scribbles and those drawings. And we have to make sure that we provide opportunities for them to scribble and draw as much as possible so that they can eventually go to that inventive spelling and conventional writing and spelling.
We also want to reiterate to families, writing doesn't always have to be a formal activity. We can point out writing in everyday life. So like in recipes, signs, addresses, clothing, etc. So depicted here, I have a video. Steph, if you could hover your, the video of a little girl. She was pretend playing, oops. It's not an actual video, it's just a screenshot of my Seesaw activity because it shows her face a lot and there's a conversation. It's a really rich conversation, but it's not really pertinent to our conversation right now. The point being, writing doesn't have to be a formal activity. So she is pretend playing. This week we were talking, or recently we were talking about mail carriers. She was pretend playing being a mail carrier and writing a letter to her friend. So she like drew a scribble or a doodle on a piece of paper, put it in a pretend envelope, put it in a bag, and then she went on her way. So not only was she pretend playing, but she incorporated writing into that. So that was something super informal, but a great opportunity to practice writing. We want to point out, we tried to stress to families again, that it can be informal. We're at when we're out and about, when we're out and about. The picture of the snowman was, I had recently taken my son to the doctor. Like that was at the doctor's office. And the one below that is a recipe for a bubble solution. So just referencing that to children and reiterating that to families, that reading and writing doesn't have to be always formal.
Mm-hmm. And modeling too, ways to write. So some practical things that we can share, and this is where we would hope that you guys, if you have anything to add to these, feel free to jump in. So one of the first things that I was pretty adamant about continuing from in-person to remote was to journal. I just see so much value in it, in journaling. I've done it a long time. For a lot of years I've been teaching, and just, you can see with that on the previous slide, the progression of writing, just within a year, you look at their journals, you can see how they are progressing. And it's just great documentation to show the families at parent-teacher conferences, or like a keepsake for them to have at the end of the school year. So we do journaling, and remote, it is tricky because we only have so much time on our live sessions. So we don't do it daily. I encourage them to do it daily on their own, but formally, I only do it with them 1 day a week. So they know that every Thursday is journal day, and they get really excited about Thursdays and what they're going to write. I always tell them that it's their journal. I don't do prompts when we do journaling. I tell them that it's theirs. Feel free to just give them ownership, so that they just feel, so it's more valuable and meaningful to them. And there's how it looks on Zoom is I usually will play some soft music or play just music related to maybe the unit of study that we're doing. And then I just encourage them to write. Just, bring your materials and write. Sometimes I will have my document camera on so they can see what I'm making as they're doing it, just to maybe get some inspiration. And then at the end, if one of my classes is really big, so we don't have time for them to individually share. So what we do is they'll take a picture and upload it to Zoom, and I'll give them feedback on what they show me in their journal. But during the whole group session, we do a 1, 2, 3 share. So I let them share their journal. I let everyone unmute their mics, and we kind of give feedback to each other, comment, what is something you noticed? Oh, I noticed that there's lots of colors here. Wow, I can see someone made shapes. Oh, those look like faces there. Just giving them verbal feedback about what they made in their journal. A lot of times they do want to share what they made. So if they send me a picture in Seesaw, I'll try to bring it back to one of our live sessions and highlight it. I'll use it as my virtual background, or just share my screen and then give them an opportunity to talk about what they did in their journal that day. But yeah, journals is one of the main ways to incorporate writing, open-ended writing. Let me go back. Oops, sorry about that. I'm sorry, friend. And these videos I won't show because they are showing some of the faces. I did get permission from this child's mom, but it's just an example of her explaining what she did in her journal. And it's just very rich conversations, and just builds her confidence. She's a new person in my classroom. She wasn't there. She didn't start at the beginning with the other friends, but I just wanted to make sure I gave her that opportunity to present her journal in front of the class. And I think it's valuable. And the kids really, they pay attention, they perk up, they get ideas from each other during that shared time. Another way to incorporate writing that I've had success with is to somehow incorporate it into your morning message, or your question of the day, your morning meeting, however you welcome the kids in first thing in the morning. So personally, I do a question of the day, and it's something simple sometimes, and this would look more like a journal prompt. So it's not considered a journal, it's a question. So I pose it as a question in their morning message. So I'll say, on that snow day that we had last week, I'll say, can you draw a picture of yourself in the snow? So you see this child drew a picture, and then he used the microphone feature on Seesaw. We use Seesaw as our asynchronous learning supportive tool. So he had a whole conversation with me. We went back and forth for about 4 times, and he said he's having a snowball fight with his brother. After that, they're going to build or stack the snowballs like a fort. It was just a lot of communication, a lot of vocabulary building, in addition to the writing. I'll go quickly, so I'll give Sarah some time to finish up. Another thing that I've had success with is to offer writing as an option to show something that you know during your asynchronous time, kind of like I mentioned with the journals. So one of the activities, when we were doing a short food unit, this was at the end of last year. So they all had to come up with a grocery list. We talked about groceries for a long time. We talked about different foods, and they had to come up with a grocery list. So Sarah talked about pointing out lists and using those as opportunities to point out writing and literacy. So they had to make a grocery list, and other lists too, we always come up with, or rules that I write. And I almost always try to have a model of myself doing it before I send them off to do it during the asynchronous writing time or just asynchronous learning time. Sorry, that's you don't need to see that.
Thanks, Stephanie, for sharing all your great ideas. I wanted to share, so moving on, a little bit more of direct teaching opportunities as it relates to writing. The first example I want to show is an opportunity I had with drawing pre-writing lines. If you want to tap on that.
Sure.
The example. So this type of activity gives students understanding that letters, numbers, and images are made from different kinds of lines. So like straight lines, curved lines, zigzag lines, horizontal lines, vertical lines. That's how we build shapes. That's how we build letters. That's how we build our drawing, right? We're able to use, or I'm somewhat familiar with Handwriting Without Tears. It's a program.
Writing curriculum, yeah.
Yeah, writing curriculum, thank you. And I pulled some of these ideas from that curriculum. So the first picture, or these pictures on the left of the blue, are just examples of straight, vertical, horizontal, and curved lines. And we then applied it to our unit of investigation. So the two on the top were buildings and roads. So students I just encouraged them to practice drawing those straight vertical or straight horizontal lines and use their imagination to put it in a picture. And then the one on the bottom are fireworks or rainbows. So practicing writing those curved lines by using your imagination to make fireworks or rainbows. So what this looked like, these are actual pictures of the Seesaw activity or the asynchronous activity. So as it would look in the actual application, I took a video of myself demonstrating it, and then the children were able to have the opportunity to demonstrate it next to my example. But when we did it live, I just used my document camera, and it's fun to like make the sounds to go along with the fireworks, or we'd draw a couple of the different, so for the fireworks, for example, like a couple of different lines, and then the kids would have opportunity to share and tell a little bit more about, have you ever seen fireworks? And as Stephanie was saying, like just making connections, personal connections, as well as cognitive connections to the experience. And then underneath that is an example of like start, stop, to the right, Stephanie, sorry, where they start somewhere and they end or they stop somewhere. The one that has the stop sign again went with our community helper unit. So we were talking about like streets and stop signs, and the children were asked to just start in one place and finish in the other, start in one place and stop in the other, but in the context of like a fun, it connected to the community helper unit. And then the one behind that with the bird and the children and the worm is something we'll be doing in the spring. So again, fly the bird to the nest is a straight line. Not only does it have the child cross midline, but again, it's a horizontal line. The children in the puddle have to make curved lines to jump into the puddle. And then the worm needs to like make a path. So the bird and the children are predetermined lines, and the worm is kind of like a freeform line. So like the child can decide what the worm's path looks like. And in a practical application of this, you can break it up into 3 different activities. You could allow the children to choose, make whatever kind of line, or you choose the path you want. But ultimately, the idea is free writing strokes consist of horizontal, vertical, and curved lines, and you can do that in a really fun way. The next activity kind of goes with the pre-writing lines as far as how the practical application looks. We do. So it goes along with the song, My Teacher Draws. Can I get I think you guys have an option to do the reaction on the bottom where you can like give a thumbs up or a clap. Are you familiar with the Teacher Draws song? Yes or no? Janice says no. Thanks, Janice. Tamara says no. Okay. So I'll sing one very short verse. My teacher draws the shapes for me. What's the shape? Let's look and see. And it's literally that simple. And then I draw a shape, and whether it's a triangle or a circle or a square or whatever, and then the kids all can like say what it is. I've done this 2 different ways. One way they had writing materials with them. One way was just direct instruction where we were just looking at the shapes. So the second way is more, I felt I got more, or the students got more out of it when they had, so we send home, we do material pickups where we're very fortunate to have like bags put together, and then the kids come in and of materials. And in one of the material bag pickups, we sent home dry erase markers and dry erase boards. So every child has a dry erase marker and a board, and they can bring it to circle time. And during this activity, I draw the shape, then they draw the shape, and then they're given 2 minutes to add details to the shape. So in this example was during our clothing unit, I drew a rectangle, the children drew a rectangle, and then again, they were given 2 minutes to add details, and the rectangle was then turned into pants. Or a square can be turned into a t-shirt with triangles on as the sleeves, or a triangle itself can be turned into a robe, or an oval can be turned into a tutu. So the child with the pink piece of paper really, really likes to color and draw. So she added a lot of different shapes. And then the child on the right participated in the one shape, which, like I said, was a square. So we start with the one shape, and then they're given 2 minutes to add details, or I say 2, but it's not really a like determined amount. I don't put up a timer. It's kind of just like color as you want, draw as you want.
Get it, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So that was a fun activity. Another activity I wanted to share is just scaffolded name writing. This type of activity mirrors what a child might do during a transition as they're coming, like during play or arrival, if they were in person. It's just a chart like this that is laminated and sent home. And similar to our experience today where we had some wait time, this laminated sheet of paper is something that kids can do while we're waiting or while we're struggling with technology. So it's all kind of in that material bag or in their circle time folder. They can just pull from of like, all right, friends, we got to wait a couple minutes. So while you wait, why don't you take out your doodle pad, or why don't you practice writing your name? I also encourage them to do this to get themselves ready, because writing is very much a sensory experience or a stress reliever. So doing some writing before they come to Zoom, and this is something that parents, it kind of looks worksheety, but we have to scaffold where parents are or family members are, because it's not always parents that are with them.
I just want to let you guys know that we have about 14 minutes before we're back in the main room. So just in case to allow for Q&A.
Thank you very much. We have one more practical application, and then that'll leave us at least 10 minutes to talk. As I had alluded to, that writing is very much a sensory experience. Incorporating writing into sensory experiences, Stefanie and I both felt the kids are missing out on from not being in school. So we encourage the kids to bring when there was snow here in Chicago, the activity was to go draw in the snow, and I'd say more kids than not brought snow inside.
Same when I did that, yeah.
And I was like, you do you, friend. Like, you're writing, you're experiencing it the best way that you know how. So I don't really like using food or consumables. So I listed here some examples of non-consumable materials that you can incorporate into writing, like sand, colored sand, chalk, snow, dirt, water, finger paint, and shaving cream. I actually had a conversation with a parent just yesterday, and she was like, yeah, we don't have shaving cream, but like, could I use whipped cream? And I was like, I think the student would like that even more. So go ahead, Steph.
No, Sam, they can taste it.
Yeah, pudding, yellow. But the practical application of incorporating writing and sensory play, again, goes back to that teacher draws song. So the children have a tray or a table or some type of flat surface. They put their sensory material on that surface. So if it's shaving cream, they put the shaving cream on the surface. And then we use our fingers to draw the shapes or draw the letters. And I'm doing it with my DAC cam simultaneous while they're doing it at home. The rollable or like the materials that kind of fly away, like sand or dirt, I really encourage the tray. And families are really innovative. So I recommend sheet, and like you can see in the picture on the right side, they found some circular sheet. So they figure it out.
They come up with things. Yeah. I try to, when I have families come up with things that I hadn't thought of, those are a lot of times that I shared, or I asked them, can I share this with the class? So just give other people ideas. So because parents at home, they're like us, they are like running out of ideas, trying to be as innovative as they can. So when I see something like amazing like that, I always ask if I could share it. Did you want to play the video?
I mean, there's no sound to it. It's just a parent shared the video of the student watching the Zoom, and even his sister in the background was like playing along too. So he started with his finger, and then he moved to a paintbrush, and I don't know, he just looked like he had a really good time. Oh yeah, yeah. So thank you everyone for humoring Stefanie and I's practical applications, just as much as we are trying to learn this remote learning. We'd love to engage in a conversation with all of you now.
Absolutely, yeah. Does anyone have any feedback or anything, any other amazing writing ideas that you've come across during this time? We'd love to hear it and steal it.
I like the idea of using the whipped cream. I've never tried that before. That's different. That's something I have to try. And we have this kinesthetic sand. That new sand is really one you pick it up and it falls down. The new sand. That's a nice one to use too. They get a chance to fill it in and the texture and it blends into their hands. That's a nice one too.
Yeah, I've seen that. Mm-hmm.
I'm from the Pacific Northwest. Birdseed is readily available to use, and that's a nice sensory one that you can draw, and then they can use it outside to feed their feathered friends as well. So birdseed is kind of nice one. And then another one is to do other tools, like if it's shaving cream, I heard you say like finger or paintbrush, but also to maybe get, it's the fine motor, so maybe get a comb or something from the kitchen to use as well, to play with to do the sensory play with you.
Yeah, and some kids may not be as comfortable using markers or pencils, or may not even have that control yet. So I think that's a great idea to use other things that aren't so intimidating for some of those kids who are still developing.
Right. And thank you both, by the way.
Thank
you. Sometimes I hear in Seesaw activities, family members or adult supports saying things like, oh, no, stop, or that's enough, and not in a yelling way, but like in a cautious way. And so I think encouraging them to use out of the box materials or like you had said, the birdseed or the comb kind of maybe breaks down that wall and allows for more exploration and more play in the kids' learning.
I have a question. What have been some of the more popular prompts that kids have responded really well to?
I do a lot of I do questions of the day almost every day, and for a while I was running into a wall where I couldn't think of. I try to do things that are fun and just to get them thinking, not simple closed-ended questions. So anything that's related to the study that we're doing, those are really popular. When you ask them to draw something that's personal to them, or draw and write a picture, or draw a picture and write about what's something personal to them, their favorite teddy bear, their mom, a person who helps them feel better when they're sad. I feel like anything that they can like immediately relate to, those I get the biggest responses from.
That's true. We did recycle, and some of the kids never actually seen what the recycle trucks do. So we did the landfill, and the kids were amazed. Even the parents was amazed at some of the things they do in landfills. I didn't even know anything about it, so it was like really fun to learn something like that.
Yeah, if you haven't done it yet, Community Helpers it pairs very well with remote learning, only because the kids it is right there in their everyday life. It's like, when does the postal worker, like, look out your window, you're going to get mail today, you will see it. The garbage truck, what day does the sanitation worker come? So Community Helper is a really good prompt that I have found stimulates good language and writing.
And kind of on that note too, we're kind of coming to the end of our community helper unit, and our kind of culminating thing, we are going to write or draw pictures for healthcare workers. So the families are really invested in this too. So a lot of their journals this month kind of have been already doing this. So I was encouraging families to share those pictures, and they will dictate some some words for them to say. We talked about, they already learned about doctors and nurses and why we're not in school. They know everything about that. So next week we are going to spend some time. What would you say to a person who's helping people get better during these times? So they're going to draw a picture, and then I hope the families will help me dictate some of their words onto those pictures so that we can share them with local first responders and things. Does anyone use any other kind of, do you guys use Zoom and an offline platform, or are you all mostly on Zoom exclusively or offline exclusively? How does your remote learning look where you live?
I'm in Chicago, and we doing a remote. I do remote in the morning, and then I leave from my morning session and go to another school and teach in the classroom. So I go back and forth, back and forth. It's kind
So
of
are
hard.
you early childhood?
Kindergarten.
Oh, okay.
We go back and forth. I have a session
Are
in the
you
morning.
on all day, or what times?
Well, I have a Zoom in the morning with my remote kids, and then I go to the school and I teach those kids there.
Okay.
So I go back and forth. So I'm half and
So
half.
it's 2 different sets of kids. Okay.
I teach remotely, but also so I'm on Zoom with the children, but also able to send a home kit home. So
Okay.
also some of that is done not on screen time, so that they're able to, and I explicitly write out for the parent, what the goal that, what cognitively or physical thing that we're working on with the student, and then connect up. Then when I'm on Zoom, I'll sometimes just have them share something they've done off screen. So that stretches it out and also cuts down on the screen time.
Yeah. What are you in early childhood?
Yeah. So I actually
But
yeah. So 3, 4, and 5-year-olds,
okay.
the preschool age, but actually I work for a college where the parents are my students. So I'm
Oh, okay. My daughter went to school with me when I was
yeah. So the parents are kind of my students. It sounds weird, but I'm also working with their children and helping them understand how their children learn and develop, so that they can support their development and get them school ready and just life ready.